Hey, I'm in Kuwait, by the way. I'm here. Oh, Eddie Murphy.
How many idiots can we put in a film? 3, 2, 1, action. We just watched Best Defense, starring Dudley Moore, Capshaw, and Eddie Murphy, who gets quite a top billing, even though he's not necessarily in the movie all that much.
Yeah. Well, see, this is one of those things I never heard of it. And if you'd have told me, hey, Dudley Moore and Eddie Murphy did kind of a military comedy together, I'd have been like, what? That sounds crazy. But they kind of didn't, though. They kind of didn't. Because here's the deal. This was originally a Dudley Moore film. And I guess test audiences were like, man, it's not that good. So they're like, hey, let's shove Eddie Murphy into it. And then it'll be good because Eddie Murphy's so hot right now. So they kind of shove him into it. So it's like two different movies, two different films.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So you've got Dudley Moore, who plays this kind of lazy engineer type guy. And he's working on this stabilizer thing for the military. And the majority of the movie is that story. But then you've also got Eddie Murphy, who plays a tank lieutenant. And he is at the receiving end of Dudley Moore's technology. And it cuts back and forth. So Eddie Murphy's story takes place a couple years in the future, while Dudley Moore's story takes place a couple years in the past. And it jumps back and forth between the two.
Yeah. And you could tell they just kind of shoved the Eddie Murphy stuff in there because he doesn't even they made it in the past and the future because he has no interaction with the main cast. So it's essentially the Dudley Moore movie. And then they kind of shove Tank Lieutenant Eddie Murphy in there with his super goofball Kuwaiti trainees who aren't funny, but they're always like, Eddie Murphy,
we're idiots. We're idiots running a tank. Yay. Oh,
so it's trying for that goofball thing. It's so stupid. It's a mess. I'm going to say it now. This movie's a mess. Here's what they should have done. This was directed by the reason we know about this movie.
Willard Huyck, yes, exactly.
The Howard the Duck fame. So we were like, hey, this is his other movie before that. Let's give it a shot. But it's a disaster because here's what they should have done. This would have probably been like a mediocre Dudley Moore movie, but they should have just kept it at that because now it's a disaster Dudley Moore, Eddie Murphy movie. So they just made it worse. It's a mess, dude.
I agree. So, yeah. So basically, as a Dudley Moore movie, it's certainly not one of his better movies either. But it would have made more sense if it was just the Dudley Moore story, right? Because it's just him being Dudley Moore and that whole stuff there. And then it cuts to the Eddie Murphy stuff, which is just stupid, just flat out stupid. And you're like, it actually drags the film down versus bring it up, which is what they thought they were doing when they added it. Because like you said, Eddie Murphy was hot back then. He was the in thing. So it's like, hey, Eddie, here's a big fat check. Come be in this movie.
That's why he did it.
Right.
He even admitted a few months later on Saturday Night Live, he went on Saturday Night Live and said, hey, y'all, look, I didn't actually want to do the movie, but if you would have saw the check they gave me, you would have made Best Defense too. So cut me some slack. I know it was really bad, but they gave me a check. I got to work, you know?
Yeah. If they're offering you enough money, you'll do it. And I doubt he would have shot all that long because, I mean, most of his scenes are in the tank. He's got a few exterior outside of the tank scenes and stuff. And I think they shot in, where did they shoot? Iran? Were we friends with Iran?
No, we were not. But his character is supposed to be in Kuwait. And then Kuwait's invaded by Iraq, which was interesting because that's like 7 years before they actually did it. I thought that was kind of like foresightful.
Yeah, that was pretty much the only interesting thing about this is that they predicted the future.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, but the movie starts out with Dudley Moore's like they're getting up and just begging his wife for a little morning action. And then it cuts to Eddie Murphy, who's with a belly dancer in Kuwait in a nice hotel room, just totally getting it on like NC-17 style. You know what, this movie's going to have a lot of that kind of sexual stuff, and it did. And so you think it's going to be this Dudley Moore, Eddie Murphy buddy thing. I'm like, okay, Eddie, yeah, they're going to get together, but they don't even see each other. They're not even in the same time frame. They don't even see each other. Like, it's obvious they filmed Eddie Murphy's stuff like at post-production, like after the movie was made. We're going to shove this stuff in there. It's so weird. It's weird, dude.
It's not funny, so let's add funny to the film in the form of Eddie Murphy.
But he's not funny either.
Wait.
I mean, he's funny because of Eddie
funny.
Murphy. He's just like naturally funny. But it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You could tell he's like making a paycheck, and he's got these goofy Kuwaiti guys, and it's so forced. It's so forced.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, these soldiers, so what are they're just the dumbest of the dumb. So are they saying Kuwaiti soldiers are idiots? Are they just like, you know, like I know with comedies, there's certain allowance sometimes for dumbass soldiers in a comedy, but this is just ridiculous. I mean, it's just
all
stupid.
of them are dumb. So he goes through the locker room.
Thing.
Eddie Murphy goes through the locker room, and it's literally a circus of these Kuwaiti soldiers just acting the fool. And it's like, is that because they're Kuwaiti, or is it because they're Arab, or is it because they've been hanging out with Eddie Murphy and they picked up all his goofy mannerisms? Like, what's the point of having all these? I mean, because I see like Kuwaiti or even Arab soldiers, they look kind of stoic, man. They're not goofing around. They're goofing around.
Yeah. And it's made in the early 80s, so you can allow a bit of like racial offensiveness for the era that it was made in, but it wasn't funny. Like, even then,
no, even then.
Funny,
but Dudley Moore, he's about to get fired because his stuff doesn't work. So he's having a margarita with his goofy engineer friend, because everybody's goofy. Like, nobody's not goofy in this thing, which is not funny.
Yeah. It's like a group of engineers, but they're all idiots.
And his company is in a bowling alley, like a former bowling alley, and they're about to go under. So, but then there's this engineer who at the Mexican food restaurant who doesn't want to actually go through with this deal he has with like KGB operatives. So he like slips Dudley Moore a floppy disk, like it's a real floppy disk, 1984 style, right? And the guy from Sledgehammer TV show, KGB dude, ends up killing that guy. But Dudley Moore has the disk, so he pops it in the computer, and it just so happens that it's a working version of the exact same mechanism that he was working on. And everybody's like, wow, you saved the company. Yeah, that's pretty lucky, right? That engineer's like slips him a thing, doesn't even know what he's working on, but it happens to be, he puts it in that monochrome 80s thing, and it's like the working version of what he's supposed to do. Oh, so he saves the company, right? He saves the company.
He keeps wanting to admit the truth, but he can't, because now he's gotten in too deep.
Right, and he's getting it on with the other engineer in there. So he's
or wants
and I
to,
guess the whole
to.
like infidelity thing is supposed to be funny too. I kind of feel sorry for his wife. She's just at home with the boy, and she's been supporting his lazy, sorry ass. But
they justify it because she doesn't want to have sex with him in the first scene.
Oh, that's what it is. She's not putting out,
totally
so the infidelity is justified. Okay, yeah. Because it's 1984. Yeah, this movie is pretty misogynistic.
Yeah, across the board. It's racially offensive. It's misogynistic.
And here's the thing. I'm not against those things if you're funny. A little misogyny and racism's fine if you're funny, but it's not funny, so it just makes it offensive and not funny. It's like, no. So Sledgehammer guy comes back. Peter Cetera, bad guy Peter Cetera comes back and finds him at the hotel, and he's like, takes him to the sushi bar, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you if you don't give me my stuff, right? But I'm actually gonna pay you. If you give it to me, here's $10,000, and there's 90 more thousand where that came from if you give him the shiznit, right? And he's kind of crazy. So Dudley Moore's like, okay. But then he goes back to get it on with his infidelity, but then the whole FBI is like all over this, right? So they want to wire him. But meanwhile, like every once in a while, you see Eddie Murphy pop in Kuwait for, hey, I'm in Kuwait, by the way. I'm here. I'm in a tank, running down civilians because the tank doesn't work.
Tank doesn't work. Handle falls off. That kind of stuff, because that's believable.
Well, you kind of forget about Eddie Murphy until they just throw him back in there for no reason. Oh, yeah, Eddie Murphy's in this movie, right?
Wonder what's going on with Eddie Murphy. Oh, okay, he's rolling around in Kuwait in a tank.
So
Got it.
Then there's the whole shootout thing, and for some reason they have these dictators from the south of, like the Latin American country. Dictators are involved somehow because they're just visiting.
Yeah, they just show up randomly.
But then they're visiting like right at the time where they're trying to do this sting operation with bad guy Peter Cetera, and so they get involved and end up saving him. They don't like communistas or something. I don't know what that was all about.
I don't know. And of course, the FBI is also a bunch of morons. Like everybody in this film is a moron.
So, yeah. So somehow the dictator, South American dictators are involved with this for no reason. They're just visiting, but they get involved. And it turns out the thing, even the working version isn't going to work. And he's like, no, I can make it work, though, with my kid's toy. And this movie's a disaster, man. It's just a mess.
Yeah. I don't know. It's sad because I like Dudley Moore. I think he's funny. I like Eddie Murphy. I like Kate Capshaw. I like basically everybody that's in the film, right? But it's just terrible. It's just poorly produced. It's poorly written. It makes sense why Willard Huyck lost his directing career to go from this movie to Howard the Duck, which at the time everybody hated.
Well, and we talked about this. It's not we like it probably more than most, but it's not a great movie. Yeah, but this is bad. So I'm surprised that he was even allowed to direct Howard the Duck after this travesty. But here's the thing: you can tell there's obvious involvement, studio involvement here. You can't put this all on Huyck at all because they're probably like, oh, we managed to get Eddie Murphy because we paid him a bunch of money, and somehow you got to like shove him into this Dudley Moore movie. That's obvious studio interference, man. You can't put the whole thing on that director, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. The test audience didn't like this movie, so rather than reshoot some scenes, maybe do a little bit of rewriting, a better edit, it's like, well, let's just keep all that crap that the audiences didn't like, but then also add Eddie Murphy.
Let's shove him in there.
Great. Let's just put this
in
there.
And you can tell it's like a whole nother movie that they kind of shoved in there. And you go long stretches just with the Dudley Moore movie. Like there was a time after the initial 10 minutes where it was maybe more than a half hour without even seeing Eddie Murphy. It was a Dudley Moore movie. And then suddenly Eddie Murphy pops up in Kuwait with his goofy,
Eddie Murphy laugh.
And all his Kuwaiti soldiers who are maybe have chromosomal issues or whatever their problem is. They're not funny. So
no,
and I didn't want to laugh at them because what's wrong with these poor guys? Like, I don't want to laugh at them because I don't want to.
Yeah, but they didn't do anything worth laughing at. If Dumb and Dumber, right? They're idiots.
Yeah, they're funny though.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're funny idiots. These guys are just idiots for the sake of having idiots in a film. next to other idiots in a film, next to other idiots in a film. It's just how many idiots can we put in a film and somehow make it act like that's going to make it funny, but it doesn't.
Yeah, this movie is a train wreck. I never heard of it, probably because in 1984 we were all about Ghostbusters, like, and according to what I read, for a time after after its release, it was actually doing pretty well and was number 2 behind Ghostbusters. But then that went away quickly because word of mouth spread about, like, don't go see this. Because you think, oh, it's Eddie Murphy and Dudley Moore. It's probably pretty good with that kind of star power. But then you go, and so it's like one of those bait and switch things where you go and see the movie and then you're like, oh crap, I just paid money for that. I'm going to tell everyone I know not to do that. And then it kind of dropped.
Yeah, it made its money back according to IMDb. The budget was 18 million and globally it made 19 million. So broke even about.
Hey man,
but
with a movie like that, that's kind of like back in the housing bubble when you bought a house, but then you sold it and you broke even. You were like, hey, I'm just happy to break even. That's kind of like this. If you broke even on this disaster of a movie, you should be thankful. That's probably why Huyck got another chance too. It's like, well, he made $1 million for us, so let's go ahead and rock and roll.
You broke even. Maybe we'll behind the scenes acknowledge that we had a bit too much studio interference. Go make Howard the Duck. And it's like, okay, yeah, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm happy to have watched it, and because I know about it now as aficionados of these decades. It's something I didn't know about, something I didn't see. So,
but you would not watch it again.
It was hard to get through it the first time. It was hard to get through.
It was bad. Yeah, so I think we're in agreement. Big fat thumbs down on this one, right?
Like a big one.
Justifiably overlooked.
Like, yeah. Thumbs down in the funky cheese. It stinks, dude. It smells like it stinks. It's bad. It's a bad movie. And I hate to, like, I really try, even for bad ones. I'm like, there must be something about it that's nice. This isn't funny. It's a mess. It's 2 different movies trying to be squashed together, and it's a meandering. It's so bad.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, and we've done so far. We've done 4 thumbs down for me in a row. We need to find a good movie, man. Next time, I'm dying over here. I'm in movie hell.
That's what you get for not liking Hudson Hawk, man.
I'm in movie hell, dude. It's just right. The past 4 or 5 movies we watched. I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to question whether we even made good movies back then. Yeah. Hey, don't watch this, guys. We watched it for you. There's your review. I'll give you the spoiler. Ends up, because don't watch this. I'll give you the ending. They actually put Dudley Moore's toy that he made for his kid. That's the actual part to make this thing work if it overheats. And then 2 years later, Eddie Murphy and his goofballs are in the tank with a Iraqi helicopter coming at him. They're like, oh no, we overheated. We're going to die. But then it works because of Dudley Moore's little toy thing. And they blow up the helicopter, and Eddie and his goofballs are saved. So you can thank Dudley Moore 2 years earlier for that. And that's the end.
Yay.
Now you don't have to watch the movie. You're welcome. You're welcome.
You are welcome. Glad we can help you out with that.
Now you know the ending. You don't have to watch this. Congratulations.